companies raised local pump prices anew this week, but the upward adjustment was lower than the previous weeks. On Tuesday, the price of diesel rose by P1.65 per liter, while those of gasoline and kerosene increased by 50 centavos per liter and 10 centavos per liter, respectively. Kerosene is used by many Filipinos as fuel for cooking and heating. This is the fourth straight week that oil companies have jacked up fuel prices. Prior to this week's price hikes, the accumulative increases stand at P29.50 per liter for gasoline, P44.25 per liter for diesel and P39.65 per liter for kerosene, based on the Department of Energy's weekly monitoring. In Metro Manila, prices of gasoline range from P75.95 per liter to P98.90 per liter. Diesel retails from P81.55 per liter to P98 per liter, while kerosene is sold from P89.64 per liter to P99.04 per liter as of June 23. Tokyo, Japan baked under scorching temperatures for a fourth successive day on Tuesday, as the capital's heat broke nearly 150-year-old records for June, and authorities warned power supply remained tight enough to raise the specter of cuts. A high of 36 C was predicted for Tokyo on Tuesday, after 3 successive days of temperatures topping 35 C, the worst streak of hot weather in June since records began in 1875. Cases of hospitalization from heatstroke rose early in the day, with many in the capital continued to flout government advice by continuing to wear face masks outdoors, a legacy of more than 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. For a second day, authorities asked consumers in the Tokyo area to conserve electricity to avoid a looming power cut. The heatwave comes less than 2 weeks before a national election in which surging prices, including electricity, are rated the top concern for voters in opinion polls that show the government's approval rating slipping. As of 9 a.m. local time 0000 GMT, 13 people had been taken to hospital with suspected heatstroke, Fuji News Network said. At least 2 people are believed to have died from heatstroke, media said, prompting authorities to moderate their calls for power saving. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas (BSP) has been criticized, wrongly, I think, for being dovish, behind the curve, or not acting fast enough in response to speeding inflation and exchange rate movements. It seems to me that economists, as against financial analysts, tend to better understand the BSP's moves, especially as its top leaders in the governor, deputy governor, and monetary board positions have increasingly been drawn from professional economists. Bankers used to be favored to head the country's central bank and serve in the monetary board, seemingly on the misplaced notion that the job is mainly about supervising and regulating the country's banks. But monetary policy, the decision on how much money should circulate in the economy, is too complex to entrust to bankers, unless they are also well grounded in economics. The economy has so many interlinked moving parts, and the central bank's monetary policies are far-reaching and complex. That is why the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States is consistently drawn from the economics, not banking, profession. It is, thus, welcome news that BSP Governor Ben Diokno, who will soon become Secretary of Finance, will be replaced by Dr. Felipe Medalla, another competent economist who has served in the Monetary Board for over a decade. Like Diokno, he is a PhD economist, and was my immediate successor as head of the National Economic and Development Authority in 1998, which makes him a truly seasoned economic policymaker. He well understands the delicate balancing act the BSP constantly does to keep prices stable, sustain growth in jobs and incomes in the economy, and ensure a strong financial system. Medalla has already given us a foretaste of his monetary policy perspective in a recent interview, where he declared, "What we care more about is Philippine inflation, not the exchange rate." He certainly doesn't mean that the exchange rate is unimportant, but points out that like other central banks in the world, BSP's primary focus is on managing inflation. But he also understands that a depreciating peso is not necessarily a bad thing. Economists like me face a constant challenge to temper the wide notion that having a strong peso or a low peso-dollar exchange rate is a good thing. It benefits some but likely hurts more. Obvious gainers are consumers of imports and import-dependent products, as the peso cost of imports falls. For Filipino tourists, it gets cheaper to visit Hong Kong Disneyland than, say, Bohol or Boracay. Our investors also find it cheaper to invest and create jobs abroad rather than here at home. Also, winners are those who must pay back foreign loans, including the government itself, but it also faces lower peso revenues from import duty collections. I've been told before that the effect is largely neutral for the government. The incoming Ferdinand Marcos Jr. administration has only 6 years, equivalent in duration to just 2 years of senior high school and a 4-year college course. This is an impossibly short duration for completing some significant stage toward a national development goal unless one works with a superb cabinet. A cabinet is a collegial body. It is not a mere concatenation of individual departmental executives. Moving a nation toward a vision of development through wicked challenges requires top-class teamwork. Cabinet teamwork can be developed, but no matter how polished and accomplished the individual team members are, they need to be retrofitted into the team so that the team acquires a collective personality that is different from each of the personalities and predispositions of the members of the team. Cabinet selection, orientation, and deployment require a relevant and logical framework for choosing the right cabinet officials. Such a framework would have defined the targets for achievement by the administration. Such a framework, if presented to the electorate during the May 2022 elections, would have facilitated the selection of the right cabinet. Likewise, if Marcos Jr. and the winners were a programmatic political party offering its services as the government of the day for the next 6 years, it would have shared an ideology and organization to enable it to perform as it has promised in the elections. In the absence of a perspective plan, the shape of this governance edifice will be dependent on the motley engineers, carpenters, plumbers, masons, etc. that have been recruited for this unity project. Even before the groundbreaking ceremonies, many of the members of this construction crew have already released their individual visions of what the eventual unity edifice will look like. As it is shaping up, the prospective edifice will have myriad discordant facets.